Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack and Dave here. Hopefully, this is working all right for you guys because it's a massive day in Tottenham Hotspur news. The Harry Kane saga not going away. Harry Kane's future is yet to be decided. And I guess it's actually going to all come down to him, what he wants, what he's going to decide. And it is a massive day for Harry Kane, whether he wants to stick with Spurs, whether he wants to go to new pastures with Bayern Munich. David Ornstein did break the news today, saying that Bayern Munich has sent in a bid of £100 million, and Spurs have, I guess, accepted that bid. And it could be as well included with plenty of add ons. It's just sort of now up to whether Harry Kane and his agents and sort of his parties feel like now is the time still to make the move. Could it be too late, though, to make that move? A lot of questions that we will be dealing with today. But, Davo, how are you keeping, my friend?
Yeah, look, I'm keeping all right, Jacko. Just another day of being a Tottenham fan, isn't it? All we ask is for a couple of easy days leading into the kick-off of the season. And here we are talking about selling our best player. Life in the day of a Tottenham fan.
Life in the day and a Tottenham fan. Indeed. We have Georgie Hill, though, in the house, and he says, "Afternoon, lads. Hope you're keeping well. Just ready for the saga to be over. This should have been handled so much better. Ange deserves much more, and we, the fans, deserve more. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Harris Army." I think a lot of people will probably agree with you there, Georgie. And it feels like it's just been a never ending saga for the fans. But one I actually kind of feel like maybe we could feel the most bad for, the one that we probably should have the most sympathy for, is actually Ange Postecoglou, because while we do get put through a lot of pain ourselves as the fans, he is the one who is going to be going through the headaches of making the decisions and actually having his own job on the line when it comes to these sort of decisions that are either made by the club or by him. And when having this sort of uncertainty, this lack of clarity here, George, I just think that sets Ange up for similar sort of frustration, similar sort of headaches that previous managers have had. And it feels really kind of ridiculous that we just continue to this day to sort of kind of, I don't know, tie managers' hands behind their back or just sort of give them this kind of this rough sort of foundation to stand on. And I feel bad for Ange Postecoglou actually more than I even actually feel bad for the fans, because I love Harry Kane. I know Dave loves Harry Kane more than honestly his own misses at times, like he likes to say. But person I actually feel worse for is not even Dave. It's actually Ange Postecoglou at this stage. But what would you say to hear, Georgie, Dave?
I mean, look, it's absolutely joke the position we've put Ange Postecoglou in all summer long, Jack. I mean, I sort of, alluded to it there before preseason started, again after preseason ended. And, a lot of people sort of, when I put out a video about Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham not helping Ange, we seen it the first day, the comments like, oh, come on, guys, give him a chance. And then the next 2, 3 days, the comments had completely changed where they were sort of agreeing with us and stuff like that. And, it's been all summer long. We were coming into a big season because you got the likes of Newcastle, well, not Newcastle, but you got the likes of Brighton and Brentford, and Aston Villa, maybe, where you're starting to see maybe their
Mm-hmm.
models come to fruition, and their models are starting to work, and they've all found a way of competing in the top half of the Premier League, and then you're also competing with £1 billion ownerships. Now, look, we do have that sort of ownership. Harry Redknapp, when I was speaking to him before, he said, look, Joe Lewis could do for Tottenham what Abramovich done for Chelsea. He just chooses not to. And coming into this season when we are knocked out of Europe, even though we have someone like up front like Harry Kane, we've got no European football, and now all of a sudden, we're looking at selling him. We still haven't addressed other issues in the squad, like the back line and stuff like that. So for me, it just makes me nervous. And I know it makes Ange nervous. What manager wouldn't want the best striker in world football in his team? And here he is, 2 days left out from the season, no friendlies left, to sort of devise a plan to sort of come up with that doesn't involve Harry Kane. I mean, it's an absolute nightmare scenario. This summer of all summers, we should have been headed into it gusto, getting our problems fixed, shipping out the deadwood, and here we are sitting here with nearly a 40-man squad, and our best players leaving and our shit players still here. And they're going to remain here because some of them will be used to make up the homegrown quota.
I know this is probably a bit too soon to say this, but this might even be a bit extreme. But the way it is right now, I know Antonio Conte's window was a bit sort of mixed bag for a lot of people. A lot of even people went early and sort of said it wasn't a good window. It feels right now, if Harry Kane is to be sold this weekend, I would say Ange Postecoglou has almost been given as hard of sort of kind of a deal, or as hard of kind of a deck of cards as probably all the rest of the previous managers have been dealt, and maybe even a worse one when you look at it. Big up to Daniel Larson becoming a member, my friend. Hopefully you can tell that it's flashing up on screen there for you. And Iceman says, good evening, everyone. Roll on the weekend so this rubbish will come to an end with Kane. Dermot's in the house, but everybody, please get in your comments. Please get in your member super chats. Looks like Daniel Larson is celebrating 15 months, but we also had another one earlier from Kyle Patrick Vineyard celebrating 16 months as a fan show member. He says, yes, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy KPV at the Irish Hotspur. We are about to talk about the Harry Kane transfer saga yet again. Yes, we are KPV. So hopefully you have some FIFA or at least something to the side to distract yourself, because yet again, it's more Harry Kane saga. And Daniel Larson, member for 15 months, says, I am bored, frustrated, and tired of this comedy show. Big up, guys. Daniel, at one stage, Dave and I started to think that this died down, that it was sort of in the cards that Harry Kane was going to at least stick around, at least till January, at least till the rest of the season. And it wasn't going to be, a move to Bayern Munich. It kind of felt like it sort of had died down, that pretty much Daniel Levy heading off to Miami, as well as just sort of, at least from what we could tell from the outside, just sort of continuing to be kind of, you could say, reluctant to really engage with Bayern, really gave us the clue that this really wasn't going to happen. But it's just been a complete window of uncertainty, a lack of clarity, a lack of transparency. So I don't know, Dave. I mean, this whole window, no one can actually say they've really have been certain what's going to happen. And this is another example of it. Right before we thought Harry Kane was going to be suiting up against Brentford, this bit of news comes out.
Yeah, it's an absolute disaster, Jack. And the sad thing is, I think we've made some actual sort of decent signings in the transfer market, but it's all been overshadowed by what Tottenham have failed to do, which they've continued to fail to do over the years gone by, which is part with the deadwood, part with the shit. And now we're in a position where now we're selling our best player, our goal scorer, which I'm going to get onto in a little while on why I think we are actually going to miss him unless we replace him with someone adequate and not some of these names that I'm hearing floating about. But it's just poor planning, poor preparation, and all it's doing is making Ange Postecoglou's rebuild or transition even harder than what it needs to be, in my opinion. Which keeping someone like Harry Kane, elevates, the football that we're playing with his goals. It should be enough to be able to sort of claw you back inside Champions League. Without it, you're looking at the rebuild taking even longer, because whether we like it or not, it is going to take a while for us to get that goal scorer, and we do need that goal scorer. And I'm not convinced with Richarlison, but the main thing is, Jack, is we've put ourselves in this position because Daniel Levy refused to set a deadline with Bayern Munich. Stump this amount up by this time, or it's not happening regardless of what you offer after. He allowed Harry Kane to sort of set the deadline. Now he's accepted it. Now he's put the decision in Harry Kane's hands. And we're sitting here nearly 9 o'clock tonight, and still no sort of word on it. No statement by the club, no statement from Harry Kane's side, but at least the club should have given us a statement on something by now. And all we're sitting here doing is constantly refreshing all of our news feeds, waiting to see if Pletty Twat or all them other idiots, are giving us an update. All again driven by the Bayern side. And for me, Jack, I'm just getting fed of it. Now that the bid's accepted, now we're in this position, we just need an answer. It's either happening or it's not happening. We're going to get into a lot of things now in a few minutes, but, again, it's just the same old problems, piss poor planning around a manager, and it's going to have a knock-on effect into the season.
It is going to have a knock-on effect.
That's the sad thing about it.
It is the sad thing. Big up to you, Iceman, fellow member. Big up to Nathan Rowlands, who I believe is an elite member. Big up to you, man. He says, big up, boys. Great show so far. I'm a bit pissed. We are mere days away out from a season opener, and it's not been resolved. I think Ange Postecoglou, you have to feel worse for him. He's just been in a situation this whole summer where he just has no idea who his star man is going to be up top. Is it going to be a Richarlison that he's going to have to work with, or is it going to be the big man Harry Kane? But he's never had any clarity on the situation this whole summer. And while Richarlison does have his strengths, and Harry Kane also has his absolute strengths, you would think that as a manager like Ange, you would like to know at least a few seasons before, or at least a few weeks before the season, that you need to be able to bring in. You need to at least be able to, work with a Richarlison, be able to work with a Harry Kane. Big up, though, to Nathan Rollins. Hopefully you're keeping well. NJ123 says, big up, boys. Big up to you, NJ. Kamikaze says, this is killing me. Kane stirred up to the start. If he stays now and leaves for free, he is ruining our future. We need the money for this rebuild. Kamikaze, the way I see it is the rebuild was so massive that it was sort of needed to happen regardless of Harry Kane staying or going. And we needed to keep him around for this season if we actually had a chance of sort of rebuilding with at least some foundation with Ange Postecoglou. I just sort of feel like Kane hasn't really done the club in any way, badly or poorly. Yes, maybe he's sort of been left a bit undecided, hasn't made it super clear about what he really wants, but I feel like it's still up to the club whether they decide to sell him or not. It's not up to him whether they decide to sell. He's kind of made it clear that he's sort of okay with both situations. If he wants to stay, he'd be willing to stay. If they want him to go, he'd be willing to go. And it feels like the club are sort of the ones, at least in my opinion, that haven't made a real decision on it. But big up to you, Kamikaze. We also have Jim in the house. Good to see you, Jim. Emmanuel's in here too. Good to see you. DeBottom Duda's in here. Good to see you, DeBottom Duda. I hope you're keeping well, my friend. And he says we're in a very strange situation, a very confusing one that is, and a very frustrating one that is. Big up to you, Carl Higgins, fellow member. Big up, Carl. And plenty of you else in the house. Just going to kind of scroll to the bottom, make sure I catch up here. Tottenham Tom, Rick C, Jazzy Jones. Good to see you, Jazzy Jones. Daniel Larson saying, I feel so bad for Ange to deal with this when the first game is just around the corner. I just think he's the person you have to feel the worst for. And then Jim, member for 1 month as a Flat Cap member. Big up to you, Jim. He says, will we get any more incomings if Kane stays? You would think that Spurs still have some eyes on some center backs. I feel like maybe we could still go after somebody like a Max Kilman, somebody like I'm not too sure, like a David Hanchko or whatever over at maybe like I think he's over in the Eredivisie. He was at Feyenoord. I know the guy we spoke to today on a podcast was a big fan of him as sort of like a alternative to Romero. I still think Spurs should go after a center back. It feels like at the beginning of the summer, we said 2 at a bare minimum. We sort of have done that. I wouldn't say Phillips really counts. So I don't know. I think Spurs should have bringing in 2 center backs regardless of selling Harry Kane or not. So for me, I hope we still have some incomings going through the door, Jim. But big up to you. Dave.
Just quickly, Jack, the reason why Spurs are looking at all these youngsters is because they're getting ahead of the situation that's coming down the line. Is if they're under 21, you don't have to register them. You can have them as a part of your under 21 squad and call them up and play them. That's why Spurs are looking at all these youngsters. Them youngsters ain't going to replace Harry Kane's goals. And that needs to change. The question is will Spurs reinvest that, or will they use it to balance the books on the money they've already spent? Now, my guess is half will be used to claw back what they've already spent, and maybe half will be used to maybe bring in another player or two. But the reality is we've got a squad of 38 to nearly 40 players here, and that has to be whittled down. So even if they sell Harry Kane, I do not see this club bringing in too many more players and adding to the numbers they've already got, when now it's a process of whittling it down. So for me, I'm not convinced that they're going to spend that money to bring in players. I'm not convinced of it.
Jacob Anderson, good to see you in the house. Good to see you, as well as Carl Higgins. Tequila316, hello, Dave and Jacko. Nice to see Kane has left, then come back, only to leave, and then come back again. It's just been all over the place here, Tequila. And then also the Out lads in the house as well, saying, evening, lads, absolute disgrace. Spurs should be ashamed of themselves. They should match Bayern's wages and offer Harry Kane a new contract. I'm sure he will stay. Levy is one prize prick. Hate the man. I'm pretty sure Spurs have offered some type of package to Harry Kane. It's not as much the money that I think Harry Kane really cares about. I feel like it's more what is actually keeping him, interested in staying at Spurs. And there hasn't been a whole lot of business, you would say, this summer, at least in the back line, that would convince him that there is any trophies or there is any ambition coming sometime soon. So I don't know if it's as much that they need to offer the same wages as Bayern. I think they actually just need to offer more ambition in terms of the actual transfers coming in that build a better team and a better squad in general. I think that's what Kane has been waiting for personally.
100%.
Yeah. Foggy Foam, good to see you in here as well as Lazy 8. Hopefully you're keeping well. He says, if Kane signed a contract tomorrow, does anyone believe Levy would do what it takes to solidify and fix this club? I feel like I could say the same thing with Kane, if he were to leave tomorrow, do we really trust Levy to actually spend the money correctly to sort of fill the void of Harry Kane going? And also, a lot of people feel like, Levy would then spend a lot of that money to bring in kind of better quality players in other areas of the pitch, which I certainly support. But can we trust Levy to spend big sums of money kind of sort of last minute? Well, again, he didn't do it before with Gareth Bale. He didn't do it well with other big players that we've sold. So it feels a little bit last minute for me for him to sell Harry Kane and then sort of invest tons of money into the replacements or the upgrades that we're looking for in the squad. Just feels far too last minute. I'm not sure if we've even done our due diligence in that process either. So that's how I sort of see it, Nick. Big up to you, Sebas Wolf. Hopefully you're keeping well. But everybody, if you could do us a favor, please smash the like button. Keep getting your comments in here. We're going to put them up on screen. And then also as well, if you do want to support the channel, feel free to throw in a super chat to stop us at any stage. But this is sort of just a reaction to the news, as well as sort of just sitting here and waiting, type of stream, just to see if anything else kind of does come about, to see if there is some sort of decision made, in the next few hours, next 12 hours on the Harry Kane situation. But this did, of course, originally break from David Ornstein, as you can see on screen here. And it did say that Bayern Munich have reached an agreement with Tottenham to sign Harry Kane. Sources in Germany indicate that FC Bayern's proposal is worth over 100 million euros, accepted by Spurs. 30 years old. The 30-year-old has been leaning towards starting, but now has to make a decision on the situation. And then two, I believe we had another rumor that came in from the likes of Christian Falk as well as Bild. And sort of from Christian Falk, it was basically that there are some financial issues regarding Harry Kane's agent fees, but Bayern are still confident a deal can be completed this weekend. And then he also did tweet that rumors are that a club has made actually a significant and even better offer to Harry Kane in terms of a financial package, but it is for more of a free transfer that would happen in 2024. And then also it's kind of just been reported by Bild that pretty much the deal is near completion. It's just sort of up to basically negotiating these sort of kind of financial packages for Harry Kane's agent and family. But Dave, the recent news that has come about, or anything that, has come from the Twitter sphere, what have you made of kind of the most recent news that you would say today? And even just also the David Ornstein, where it all started from in the beginning.
Yeah, look, Jack, I've sort of been recording my thoughts all day long because I've just had so many, and I've tried to put them in sort of a good format for people to follow. So, look, first of all, credit to Bayern Munich. They've been persistent. They're in their pursuit of Harry Kane. However, stumping up the fee last minute, it suits them. It does suit them, but it doesn't suit Tottenham, and that's what sort of pissed me off. And I think that's why they've won these negotiations, Jack, because they've got the last laugh here. They've got us accepting a bid 3 days out from our season opener, which will completely change our forward line plans, from the season opener. So Bayern Munich have won this negotiation by doing what they've done. And ultimately, as much as Tottenham have tried to resist it and play silly buggers with them, Levy going on holiday, etc., they've come out. They've just been persistent. Now, part of me thinks the reason why they've been so persistent is because they didn't have any other contingency plans if the Harry Kane didn't fall through. They're just lucky that Daniel Levy loves cash, and that's why he's accepted it from a couple of days out from the season. But, and as well, Jack, Bayern Munich have gone to great lengths. They've had that sweaty, creepy, crap hair looking Prattenberg, over there with the Kane jersey. They've brought his wife and family into it, by saying that they've been over there looking at this, that, and the other. There was reports put out saying that their personal terms were already agreed. Well, if they were already agreed, why wasn't there here we go once the clubs accepted the fee? And they've just simply dragged Harry Kane's name through the mud. And if I'm Harry Kane sitting there this evening weighing it up, first of all, you ain't going to get another fan out in Bayern Munich that resembles my support for him. So he's got to take that into consideration, Jacko. But, the whole pursuit has been disrespectful towards him and his family. So for me, if I'm Harry Kane, I'm like, well, I thought a bigger club would have handled themselves with a bit more class and just come and paid the money, considering it's my boyhood club. Come and pay the money to get me out of here rather than do what they've done. So if I'm Harry Kane sitting there tonight, I'm like, well, how much do they really want me? The fact that they're willing to bring my family into it, they're willing to turn up and disrespect Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou with Bayern Munich jerseys with my name on the back. The pure disrespect of it alone, I would want to turn it down, Jacko. That then I don't know if you want to comment on that, because then I want to go on to Baldy Levy, because he's annoyed me.
I do feel like Bayern have in no way covered themselves in any sort of kind of class, any sort of kind of respect. Like, you usually do associate Bayern with being more of a classier type of club, and the way they kind of sort of operate, the way they sort of handle themselves in these type of negotiations. But it could also be the case that they're so used to getting their own way with the way that they sort of bully other teams in the Bundesliga that they might have gone about it in a similar way with Spurs, just kind of thinking that they could just sort of bully themselves into just getting Daniel Levy to just throw them Harry Kane. And Daniel Levy is obviously a guy that doesn't want to be in any way pushed around. But I do feel like Harry Kane, he's kind of been dragged through the mud in this whole thing, because even though he has said yes to Bayern Munich in some manner, the way that they've just pretty much just aired that out to everybody and their mother around the world doesn't exactly help him. And I feel like it could have been covered with a bit more kind of secrecy. There could have been a bit more privacy about it. And if I were Harry Kane, as much as maybe, yes, I originally said yes to a Bayern, I would be a bit caught off guard, or I would be a bit aggrieved by the way that they have kind of gone about just sort of, handling this whole saga in itself. They've tried to basically force Levy's hand in a lot of different ways. They've tried to almost force Harry Kane's hand in a lot of different ways. I don't think Harry Kane was really the one that wanted to force the move. We spoke about this before. He doesn't really want to look like the total bad guy in this situation. So the fact that he has been kind of forced to, I don't know, come out and kind of make little kind of I guess, how would you put it, like little murmurings to the press, just to kind of make his situation a bit clearer, it seems a bit unfair on him. And I feel like Bayern Munich have definitely got about it in a very sort of classless way, if you ask me. If I were Harry Kane, I'd reconsider. Maybe I'd look at a different club, maybe on a free transfer. If I were sort of looking at the way that Bayern have gone about disrespecting Spurs, if this were your boyhood club, you would be, again, kind of thinking that they could have gone about this a bit differently. It's hard to know, though, because it is Bayern's media, right? And Bayern's media is not really in full control of, or should I say that Bayern Munich aren't really in full control of their own media. The media outlets like Plettenberg and stuff like that maybe have gone on their own accord. But I don't know, Dave. It feels like it's been classless from the very get-go. I'm not sure how much Bayern Munich are responsible for it, but certainly their media have not made it in any way easy on Harry Kane, and have probably made it more of an uncomfortable decision because they've gone about it in a very classless way.
Yeah, look, Bayern and the media have a long tradition, going back to Nagelsmann and the Bild Reporter, you know what I mean? So, I do think the media are willing to do Bayern's bidding, especially over there in football terms, because, they're the biggest club out there. But yeah, completely disrespectful pursuit by Bayern Munich. And, if I was Harry Kane, I'd also take note of the reports that Bild put out about, he can't do this in the box, he can't do that. Okay, then, why has your club tried to pursue him all summer long? So, just for me, I don't think he's going to get the respect out there he deserves. And for me, again, Jack, why Bundesliga? To be honest, it's an okay league, but it's not the Premier League, And when he goes out there, he'd be out of sight, out of mind, in my opinion. And, if it was Real Madrid, I could understand it, right? You've got the burnabout, you've got the allure, you've got all these great players that have come before you. I get it. But not Bayern Munich, Jack. I mean, all this nonsense. You see the press doing a big U-turn, right? They've been trying their best to get Harry Kane out of Tottenham. He needs to go and win a trophy. He needs to go and win a trophy. Now all the press are worried that their best English export is on his way out. Now look, let's be honest. Bar Sadio Mane, not many of the big stars of world football are going out there. It's only the young guns going out there looking to get out of the plugged up system in England and other countries and making a name out there and then getting out of there and moving elsewhere for their prime. So for me, Harry Kane would be one of the first ones to go out there in a long time and buck that trend. So, I think if he goes out there personally, I think he's taking the easy route out for a trophy. And plus, like I said, they're not going to give you the love and the fanfare and respect that you get over here. Nowhere near it, especially with the way you've got that creepy journal. But look, Jack, I do want to talk about that Levy. He's absolutely pissed me off on this one, Jack. When it comes to Daniel, actually, do you want to get through a few chats first? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a super chat here from Debottom Duda. And then also anybody, if you want to respond to Dave, sort of kind of maybe, I wouldn't know if it's a question of Kane's ambition, but just sort of maybe a question of his thinking, right? Or do you agree with Dave? Everybody, let us know in the chat whether Harry Kane has made the right decision if he were to go to a different club. Like, is Bayern Munich really the right show of ambition? Would you actually show maybe more ambition by just sticking around at Spurs and actually trying to pursue a trophy there and try to pursue the Premier League record? But it seems like Bayern Munich have maybe given him a convincing package, or at least convinced him in some way that the Champions League is actually possible. That's what I would think that he's probably riding on, as some sort of Champions League type triumph with Bayern Munich. But everybody, let us know your thoughts on it. For Valley Gold, say something kind of similar to Dave, and that why is it really Bayern Munich of all clubs that Kane has decided to go for? But to Bottom Duda has come in here with the super chat, and he has said, just a second, he says, imagine losing King Kane and Højbjerg in the same transfer window while Eric Dier signs a contract extension. Would you also bring in another midfielder? I think we might have went a little too early on that one video, to Bottom Duda, because we did say that, and we did bring up, is Ange Postecoglou kind of being set up for failure here? Because the way you look at it, Eric Dier is staying, Harry Kane likely to leave, Højbjerg likely to leave, and some other players that maybe could have been potential sort of obvious outgoings haven't left yet. Sanchez hasn't left. I guess we've just been able to move off Rodon, but still, you think about a lot of the outgoings that should have already happened this summer have not happened. And it's more likely that some of our more important players, some of our better players over the last few seasons, are actually likelier to leave before our worst players. It's just the priorities are all wrong here. And before we get to your question of who would you bring in as another midfielder, I might as well get to Dave on that. That it is something you and I tweeted about, brought up about a few times. Like, why is it the case that Spurs seem more likely to keep Eric Dier, yet they're more, but then at the same time, they're getting rid of Harry Kane and Højbjerg in the same summer?
I mean, this is what frustrates me, Jack. Forever, for as long as I've been alive, I get football has changed tactically. I get all that. Finances and football has changed, everything, right? But one thing that hasn't changed is the transfer market. You go into the transfer market looking to get out your crap players and strengthen your weaknesses, and come out stronger than you were the season before. That's always stayed the same. But for whatever reason, we've gone into this market, the problems couldn't be any more clearer. The players that we need to get out couldn't have been made any more obvious. But yet here we are with them still here, and two of our best players leaving. Two of the players that have performed under every single manager without excuses. Two of the players that have tried to keep somewhat of a glue in that dressing room together despite other people pulling away and wanted to cause trouble and get managers sacked. And for me, it's just an absolute shambles and it's an absolute joke, joke. But Jack, this is something that I have concerns about happening anyway, because there was far more discussions that took place over this window about our better players than there has been about shifting out the crap. As soon as we seen Eric Dier back in training early, the documentary, you can see what's happening. Harry Kane will probably end up going to Bayern Munich. In steps hero Eric Dier Moonhead, captain's armband. I'm absolutely fed up with it, Jack. I'm fed up with it.
Yeah.
No, and that we'll get onto the captaincy in a while, but this whole transfer window has just gone absolutely tits up, in my opinion. And to let Harry Kane go now, there's too many unknowns. And Daniel Levy he is gambling going into this season, in my opinion, gambling more than he's ever gambled before.
Oh, and he really is trying to paint a rod on his own back, or he's really trying to paint a target on his back is really what he's trying to do. And I'm surprised at this stage as well that he's silly enough to draw this much attention towards him. But what sort of midfielder would we bring in? Would you bring in another midfielder? If we got rid of Højbjerg, absolutely, you need to bring in another midfielder. I'm a bit in line with a lot of other people though who really are looking more for a number 6, though, to Bottom Duda. I don't feel like we need another number 8 if we were to get rid of a Højbjerg. I think we need someone who can legitimately back up Bissouma, challenge Bissouma for that number 6 role, and just be an alternative there. Also, in case, let's say, there were an injury to another player in the midfield and Bissouma needed to move to a number 8, it would be nice to have a midfielder of at least some type that could fill in that number 6. So for me, any sort of number 6 that we feel like is talented enough or at least promising enough to sort of challenge and also be good enough for Spurs. And also, when you think about it, this player needs to be good enough in a way to be better than Højbjerg, because Højbjerg was a very divisive player, it felt like, at this club. And it was someone that really didn't impress everybody and was someone that a lot of people felt like was basically an imposter in what I've heard at Spurs. So we need to have somebody that's far better than that, or at least can sort of unite the fan base more on whether they're good enough really for the club. I've always thought Højbjerg was good enough, but my point being is that if maybe it was a bit of a 50-50 situation with the fan base on Højbjerg, then that means we need to shoot even higher than his level. We need to get someone even better than him as a replacement. That's the way I see it.
Look, again, you know, you've got Lo Celso, okay, had a good preseason, looked like one of the better players in preseason, but I've seen the guy have a couple of good minutes here and there before under Jose Mourinho. So again, he's an unknown quantity, right? Bentancur, from my opinion, with the length of the injury and the severity of the injury, it's going to take him a while to find his best form. So then you're relying on Maddison, Bissouma, and two kids in Skip. Well, Skip's not a kid. He's practically a man. And Papa Matasar. So for me, I think it's an absolute huge risk to let someone like Højbjerg go, knowing that, he's always available. He's always there. He always gives his best for the Tottenham shirt. So, look, again, I don't know how we find ourselves in this position. If you want me to hazard this a bet, I would have said go and get someone like James Ward-Prowse, who is a good passer from deep, gives you a bit of a different option. But I would guess that Tottenham would probably go in for Hatate from Celtic, a player that Ange Postecoglou converted into, I think it was that number 6 role, and really flourished in it. So it wouldn't surprise me to see us go for someone like him. But for me, if you're going to sell Højbjerg, you only sell Højbjerg to the value of what it's going to take you to replace him with an adequate replacement. If you're selling the likes of Kane and Højbjerg, the idea is that you go out and replace them with better players, or else what's the point? So look, don't agree with Højbjerg going either, but it is what it is. It's fucking Tottenham Hotspur, isn't it?
And Lazy 8 member for 25 months over 2 years. Top man to you, Nick. Thank you for your service, and thank you for just making this channel what it is today, my man. And he says, to clarify, I think what he meant earlier was that if Kane does sign a contract, Levy will do the usual. If Kane goes to Bayern, Levy will do the usual. So what does Kane actually do? What is he doing now? What do you think? Do you feel like Levy just sort of makes the wrong decision no matter what? He makes the wrong decision if Kane stays. He'll end up, probably relaxing a bit too much and not investing enough in the team to convince Kane to stay long term. If Kane actually goes and actually does leave this summer, Levy's not probably going to spend the money correctly. So it's sort of like, which one do you really go for? Because it feels like Levy might end up making the wrong sort of moves no matter what.
But the thing is, he put himself in this situation. He knew 2 years ago, once he didn't let him move to Man City, he had 2 years to get everything in place. The scouting structure, getting the recruitment right, getting the manager in under the belt, and proving to Harry Kane that there's a project here and that by the time this situation arose, we're closer to trophies and back to closer to where we were under Pochettino. And he's failed to do all that. It's just been instability, which is why Kane wanted out in the first place. So for me, if you're a Harry Kane, nothing has changed in that regard. And Daniel Levy, made now, it doesn't matter what he do, he puts himself in a shit position. But because of decisions from previous years gone by, that's why he's in this position. So I have no sympathy for the guy whatsoever. He put himself in it. He knew what he had to do once he took the risk of keeping Kane from moving to Man City that time.
Yeah. Big up to you, Nick. And the way I see it is, I think Daniel Levy likely does probably not make the best of decisions no matter what situation there is. So I'd rather actually Spurs maybe limit the damage of what's been happening this summer and think about selling Harry Kane, or not think about selling Harry Kane. Let him go on a free if it needs to happen next summer. Think about then replacing Harry Kane the following summer, sort of cut your problems in half, like I've liked to say, where it felt like we already had so much to do in the goalkeeper department, defensive department, midfield, other sort of signings. It was going to take probably over 100 million to actually pretty much start this rebuild and start, the process of bringing in the new talent and the new players. So the way I see it is maybe Spurs could have just broken it down in two. They could have thought about replacing Harry Kane the following summer, use around 100 million to replace him, spend around 100 million this summer to replace and improve all the Deadwood and Dross players that we have right now. It felt like it was just too many problems for Spurs to be able to fix in one summer. That way, maybe you just leave the Harry Kane situation for the next summer. That's how I sort of saw it. But Levy will probably make a bad decision no matter which outcome does happen. But big up to Chris as well, becoming a fan show member. Top man to you, Chris. And he's also celebrating 25 months, another 2 years. Big up to you, Chris. And you also are a man that has made this channel what it is today. And he says, Eric Dier has more lives than a bloody cat. How does he survive after Barcelona games? This guy needs to go. Sanchez, actually, to be fair to him, probably gave himself an extra life if he were also to be considered a cat. But Dier, I don't even know if he did, earn an extra life. In fact, I thought he had such an atrocious game that I really do hope that actually Postecoglou sees, that he's not good enough for the system. And maybe he had such a bad game that Ange is actually considering more than he ever has before to get rid of Eric Dier. I felt like Sanchez, sadly, put in a decent enough a performance that he probably put himself actually ahead of a guy like an Eric Dier. And I feel like they both need to go. But I don't know, Dave. I mean, these guys do seem to just have countless lives with this club, and they do always seem to find a way into whatever manager's team there is. And even though they've had atrocious seasons in the past, they still seem to find a way into the squad the next season.
Yeah, and that's the message Tottenham send out. The worse you are, the more money you get, and the longer we're going to keep you here. That's it. The more you do for Tottenham, the quicker you're out the door. It's an absolute disgrace, the message we're sending out. But look, all those people who told me Eric Dier is better than what, he was when he was under Conte or Jose Mourinho. He's better, he's better in this system. He's a leader. Well, let's see this season.
And Azad Hamid, big up to you, Azad. He says, I'm seeing the best player for this club and Bale leaving. Watching Kane go means nothing to me. At the end of the day, I support Spurs, not Harry Kane FC. If people, if Harry Kane FC fans think they can go to Bayern and support, or if people who are Harry Kane FC fans, they can go to Bayern and go support him. Dave, as much as I know you are probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest Harry Kane fan, I think you have said in the past, the moment that he gets on that plane to Munich, you don't really have, you're not going to be really watching him. You're not going to really be, watching any Bundesliga games. You're not going to be on the flight with him, combing his hair, making sure he's got everything packed with him. In fact, you're probably just going to be, with a bit of regret, just kind of kicking him out the door is what I think you've said.
Look, I've always argued that keeping Harry Kane is best what's for Tottenham. Now, I'll go into that in a minute. But the reality, and I've also said, Jack, that the minute he leaves Tottenham, I don't want him to win anything. In fact, I actually hope he goes out to Bayern Munich and it fails. I don't want him to win a thing. I care what players do at Tottenham Hotspur. Once he leaves, I could not give a shit. That's why I don't go around going, oh, look at all the trophies other players leave or win when they leave Tottenham. Because quite frankly, I couldn't give a shit. I care what they do in the Tottenham jersey. Now, when you go into what Harry Kane is offering in the Tottenham jersey, and this is what's got lost all summer long, is, we've heard we don't need Harry Kane's goals. Well, the reality is we do. Harry Kane has scored 280 goals across 435 appearances, 213 of them in the Premier League across 320 appearances. He bags roughly about 40% of our goals. So that's a huge proportion of goals to lose. And proven last year, when Kane amassed 22 points with winners or equalisers for us last season, you're gonna feel the difference in the tight games the most when his goals aren't there. Like I alluded to, the 22 points that he amassed us with either a winner or an equaliser to be able to gain us some points. So that's when you're going to miss Harry Kane the most. And the reason why, Jack, is because it comes down to the calmness in the moment. There's a reason why Harry Kane's up here and Richarlison is here. Richarlison scuffs his lines and gets rattled more times than he is calm. Harry Kane, the back of the net, a lot more than most other strikers around the world. But them tight games where it's on a knife edge is where we're going to feel that difference the most, Jacko. Richie's not ready. Simply not ready to take on that burden, to take on that Kane responsibility. Now, I hear the argument that others are going to chip in with goals, but if we're being realistic, others have always chipped in with goals. Bentancur chipped in last season. Our wingers chipped in last season. Wingbacks chipped in last season. We've scored more goals from set pieces than we've ever scored last season. So the reality is people are already chipping in elsewhere. But are they going to chip in as much more as we think they are? Personally, I don't think so, and I think we are leaving ourselves a problem that in them tight games, that's where we're going to feel it the most. Now, you take them 22 points that Harry Kane amassed us last season, that leaves us where Everton are. Now, with Everton, Jack, they went through a couple of managers, just like what a lot of relegation clubs do, end up changing the manager 2-3 times every season. We've done that. And we haven't had a manager in the dugout for a full season since Pochettino. We are regularly changing our managers. So, our managers have relied on Harry Kane's goals to keep them at a certain level, and they've tried to fit in the pieces of the puzzle all the way around that. Now, once you take that out, if we end up changing our managers a couple times this season, the warning signs are already there where you're going to end up.
And when it comes to if Harry Kane were to go to Bayern, I just wouldn't care much about watching him. I don't really care much about him actually winning trophies for anybody else but Spurs. Yes, I will be a bit of a loser, and I probably will be actually crying a bit when he does end up, if he does end up going. But I will probably, kind of like Dave said, I'll kind of just sort of after that, after having a bit of a cry about it, just sort of move on, like just sort of kind of just forget about it. Yes, I'll be still kind of sad. Yes, I'll still be sort of a bit, I would say, butthurt about how it basically went down with either Levy or Harry Kane. But I don't know. I just sort of would move on. Like you say, here is odd. We're not Harry Kane FC, and I don't think in any way have I indicated that we are just sort of a Harry Kane FC. I think Dave and I just really love Harry Kane, and we think he is actually the best player for Spurs to lead on with this Ange Postecoglou rebuild, and we actually think we'd be hindered by letting him go this summer. I've actually said Spurs, if they were to let him go on the next summer for free, yes, it wouldn't be ideal, but I think we'd actually better recover from that than we would from letting him go this summer. But if he goes no matter what, I am not going to be chasing after him or in any way just sort of following his career, following him to Munich in any way. In fact, I'll probably just kind of lose interest a little bit in his career, if you ask me, once he leaves Spurs.
Yeah, look, I've already got his signature and his strand of hair, so I have the momentums, Jack. I don't really need any more. But like that, we're not Harry Kane FC, we're Tottenham FC. But I've already, like I've said, I think keeping Harry Kane is what is best for Tottenham at the end of the day. Now, look, Jack, I'm not sitting here saying we're not going to score goals, because we will. But we will feel the hit this season in the tight games where Harry Kane has made that difference, unless we bring in another top quality striker to replace them goals. Now, if I go back on Tottenham's history of strikers, yes, in my lifetime, growing up, we went through a good period. Canute, Defoe, Kane, Berbatov, etc. But then it's got progressively worse. The last few, Bent, Soldado, Vincent Janssen, they've been the ones over the last while before Harry Kane. And for me, I'm not entirely convinced that we're going to get the right guy in here to be able to do that job or spend it wisely, considering some of the history we have of strikers since the likes of the Keane, the Canutes, the Defoes and stuff like that. So again, I'm just not convinced. And on the last point, on Azad's super chat, where what is it? He's seen the best players leaving Bale and stuff like that. Look, 100%, we all have. I've seen Bale and Modric leave. My old lad has watched Glenn Hoddle leave, Jurgen Klinsmann leave, people like that, right? We've all been through it. But the point is that when we built that stadium, back then, we couldn't compete financially with what Real Madrid were able to offer these players. But there's a reason why we spent so much money snapping up all the property around Tottenham Hotspur, hindered some of our transfer windows in seasons gone by, to build that stadium so that we could bring in extra revenue, but also diversify the revenue, right? We've doubled the amount of revenue in terms of ticket money that White Hart Lane was bringing in. But then you've got the Skywalk, you've got the hotel and everything, and that's coming. You've got all the added bars and restaurants in and around the ground. The club make over $1 million per match day just in sort of food and beer, just in beer alone. You've got 2 club shops in and around London as well, all making severe money, selling more merch than ever before. You've got Spurs Play. You've got so much diversified revenue. You've got the go-kart track, everything else coming. And all that was so that we could start competing with these clubs, so that we didn't have to lose our best players in the likes of Bale and Modric. So now that we're here, we should not be in this situation where we are losing Harry Kane, because we were told the whole reason about the stadium and then diversifying revenue, multiple revenue streams, is our way of competing with them and being able to offer players the same money that they are.
Big up to you, Azad. Great comment, my man. And also, As much as we lost Bale, and yeah, similar situation of, the best player at the club at the time, I just don't trust Levy to spend the money like he did with Bale, and it's actually almost more last minute or similarly kind of last minute. The way that we're going to have to spend the money to kind of the Bale situation. I just don't see it going down well here. But big up to Azad, and it's a great comment there. Paul Vambin, I think you'll like what he has to say here, Dave. He says it's the same Kane circus every single window. Relax, he's going nowhere.
Do you know what, my man? I really hope you're correct. I really do. What I will say is a lot of it again today sort of being driven by Bayern Munich's side, but reports this evening, it doesn't sort of leave me with much hope. I think the fact that Daniel Levy accepted the bid, and I've heard players say this before, as you know, your boy's a bit of a loser, and outside of football, guess what? He listens to ex-professionals talking about their career and all stuff that comes up. And many people say, I was happy at that club. I didn't want to leave, but as soon as they accept a bid for you, that shows that they don't want you anymore. And I think that's, the way Harry Kane will probably be feeling this evening. The fact that Tottenham stuck by for so long, rejecting,
Yeah.
rebuffing. All of a sudden, Harry Kane did
Yeah.
say that, if he suited up against Brentford, he wouldn't be going out anywhere out of respect to Ange and Tottenham Hotspur. But 3 days before that kickoff, Daniel Levy accepts the offer. So if you're Harry Kane sitting there this evening, you're sitting there going, okay, well then Tottenham, they think they no longer need my services. And I said to you earlier on, Jacko, I think Daniel Levy has used it to try and get Harry Kane to sign a new contract, but also to say that, if Harry Kane did decide to stay and leave next summer or sign a pre-contract in January, that he didn't stand in his way. He tried to sell him in the summer. But I did say to you, I think that could have backfired, and it could send a message to Harry Kane that he's no longer wanted and that he can go.
And Carl Higgins says, that's right, Dave, but it just shows what a blatant liar that Daniel Levy is. Big up to you, Carl Higgins. I think that's a great comment. And then big up to Paul Vambin. I like that confidence. I think Dave needs that type of confidence. I think at one stage, Dave did had this sort of confidence this summer like you did, but looks like it's getting more nerve-wracking. It's getting a bit more nervous, and I wish we had, the confidence that you do, Paul. I think we absolutely need to keep him at all costs. Hopefully, you feel the same. I understand though if you don't, and it's a bit more nuanced. Big up to you,
Yeah,
DG.
but
Yeah.
just quickly, Paul, my man. Look, I've been confident with it. Look, what I will say is there was a lot of things going. Does Harry Kane fit the system? Blah blah blah. I mean, Shakhtar Donetsk answered that game, didn't it? Do Tottenham need Harry Kane's goals? Or, what was that? Everyone else would step up. Well, I mean, they didn't against Shakhtar, did they? So, I mean, there was a lot of questions around Harry Kane's ability and what he offers to Tottenham answered with that game. But for somehow, Daniel Levy decides to ignore them all and accept anyway. But, Paul, I really do hope that the fact that it's all driven by Bayern's side, which it has been all summer long, that, it's already sort of been decided that Harry Kane ain't going. It's just Bayern throwing the toys out the pram. Big up, Paul.
Big up to you, my man, and keep that confidence, brother. Thanks for tuning in, and also thank you for your support as well, Paul. Top man. DG's in here as well. Big up to you, DG. And while you were gone, Dave, he did also become a member as well, and he was showing a lot of love and support for yourself. And he says, honest question, since I am not in the UK, do the fans still chant, I love Eric Dier, Eric Dier loves me at the games? If so, this is as confusing as how the USA voted for Biden as president. Come on, you Spurs. DG, do you feel like the Eric? I don't know. I mean, Dave, the Eric Dier song, I'm not sure if it still is sung. I think it's hopefully sung ironically or in some way kind of sarcastically, but I don't know. I can't really say for a fact, DG. I'm also kind of a fellow Yank here, so I'm not really, in always the singing crowds or in the singing sections and able to keep my pulse in there. Often I have to rely on others to tell me what's going on. But Dave, I mean, when's the last time you heard that chant?
I'm pretty sure I heard it at the AC Milan game that night. If not, it was the game I was at before that. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember I turned around. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And the crowd that were with me all turned around, looked at me, and started laughing because they knew my reaction. But yeah, it still gets sung, People still accept mediocrity. Look, I'm not going to tell people how to support their football club. You're well entitled to love what player you want to love. But by sitting there in the stands going, I love Eric Dier and Eric Dier loves me. I mean, sometimes I wish he did love me, Jack, but all the mistakes he makes proves to me he doesn't love me, which then affects my love for him. So, look, sadly it still gets sung, DG. I don't think it should. Anyway, to be honest with you, I've never sung it in anyway because I think it's a shit song. You know, you get good chants like Harry Kane, he's one of our own. You know, the
Kulusevski.
LA one made about Harry Kane, Kulu gets a good one. And then all of a sudden you're toning down the vibes, going back to 1960s opera. I love Eric. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. You know, it's embarrassing seeing the whole South Stand full of grown adults singing I love Eric Dier loves me. And then he goes out there and costs you points every week. It's absolutely embarrassing. That has to stop. In fact, I'm going to campaign. If he's still here after transfer window, no more I love Eric Dier.
Big up to DG. I hope it doesn't continue anymore. I haven't heard it or really seen it in person, really. If it ever is sung, I imagine it's more done sarcastically or ironically at this stage, but I don't know. You never know. And two, it does feel like whenever you do sort of speak to a random Spurs fan every now and again, it does feel like Eric Dier, players like that don't really get brought up straight away about some of the problems regarding Spurs. It feels like other things are brought up beforehand. Big up to you, though, DG. Leighton Evelyn is in the house as well, saying, Dave, have we already spent the Kane money? I think so. I don't really know, Leighton. I don't think we have spent the Kane money. This could be me happy clapping in a situation that I find, but I sort of feel like the Kane money is going to be around 100 million pounds. I feel like Spurs already spend to around 100 million euros in around that sort of threshold every single summer. We're sort of teetering around that money right now. So I don't really feel like much of the Kane money has really been spent yet, if you ask me. It feels like we've actually spent around what our normal kind of transfer budget basically is, each window.
Don't forget though, Jacko, we wouldn't have spent that last summer unless the club put in that 150 million that they did. We wouldn't have spent that last summer. So where would that money have come from?
I think it was then though, like the Nuno summer, right? In the Nuno summer, we spent still like close to around 100 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We average a net spend across most windows of about 100 million. I believe it works out across. But last summer, if the club didn't put that 150 million in, where would their transfer fees have come from?
Sure.
That and that's what worries me. And I think, you've got to remember as well, we're in a world with high inflation. We've got so much to pay off the stadium. We've got loans to pay back. No doubt interest rates on them have gone up. They've had the cheek to put up the season ticket prices as well as sell Harry Kane. Ironic that, innit? But look, Jack, I fear they have spent the Kane money. You look at it, Madison 40 million, Van de Ven, what was it, 40 million? That's 80 million. Vicario another 20 million. And then you've also outlaid 20 million on Valise as well. So I think they have sort of spent that Kane money. And like I said, I don't trust them to reinvest this money. I think we'll start getting excuses where our squad's inflated. And I think that money will be used to balance out the books. We're famous for it. We love doing it. And I sadly think that's where that money will go to. Or at least, 50% of that money will go to paying off debts, maybe paying back some of the owners of some of the money they put in. Because don't forget, they have 50 million sitting there that they haven't drawn out yet. So, for me, I do think that they have spent the Kane money. I do. And that's why they're prepared to accept it.
Levy or Mark says Levy isn't even going to spend the Kane money. So whatever money he's had, this is basically going to be the extent of it. Big up to you, Mark. Good to see you in the house here. Tabata Duda says, how do you rebuild a team without spending huge sums? Ask Inter Milan, and they didn't even sell Bastoni, Barella, or Lautaro Martinez. Morata for director of football. What I can tell you, Tabata Duda, is that you don't really always need massive sums to lead a rebuild because there's so many different types of players that you need to bring in. You need to bring in some of the star sort of name players that might be on the bigger wages that you might need to sort of spend some of the bigger transfer fees for. But when you're looking at like rotation options, why do you need to spend 10, 15 million? You need to be a bit more clever. You need to be a bit more savvy, like how we have actually in the case of like a Amon or Solomon. I wish actually Spurs did more of like the Mon Solomon type signings for players in the defense and players kind of in the back line where we really needed it, because I feel like that's where we could be a bit more clever and we could actually go about, our business. We've never really asked for Spurs to spend in the depths of Chelsea, Real Madrid, those sort of clubs. But I think what Dave and I have always asked is that our recruitment be more spot on and our recruitment be more accurate, because if we're not going to spend as much money as some of the other clubs, and if we don't have as much of a target to miss in terms of how much money we have to spend each summer, then that means our actual due diligence in the recruitment department, the scouting department needs to be more spot on and needs to be far more diligent so that when we do actually go after players, we know that we're going after the right player and we don't have to buy twice. We don't have to buy again or think about some other issue, once we brought in the player. Because that's been the case too at Spurs, is that even after we brought in somebody, we realized maybe it wasn't actually the right player for that position. They were actually better suited for a different position. And then we end up sort of buying again for the same position. So that's what we need to also avoid, is even if we don't have to spend as much money to make this rebuild happen, we need to make sure the recruitment and the philosophy behind the recruitment is spot on.
Yeah, absolutely, the bottom do. I mean, that's been our biggest problem, has been the recruitment. Under Steve Hitchin, it went so horribly wrong. Paratici comes in, tells us why. The scouting department is non-existent. It's not fit for purpose. And now we're playing catch-up. It's an absolute joke. And you don't need to sell. Look, we didn't need... with all the revenue we have coming in, like, we've got to understand, we're the third highest generating sports club of all time. Sports club of all time in terms of the money we generate. We don't need to be selling our best players to be able to rebuild. This whole thing that we have to sell Harry Kane to bring in a defender, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. Everyone's problem last year was that we were too defensive. Now everyone wants to bring in a defender and sell a goal scorer. I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling. What do we bloody want at Tottenham Hotspur? It just absolutely blows my mind, some of the things I hear and I see and everything else. And it's an absolute... I just can't get with it. For me, it's simple. You keep your best players and you bring in better players than the crap that you already got, and you fill in your holes in your squad and you go and give it a go next season. You come back, okay, there's a weak area, you go and address it and you go again next season. Not sell your best players. It doesn't need to be done to bring in a centre-back at this football club. And in fact, I would give back Manor Solomon, for instance, if it meant bringing in a centre-back.
Yeah.
We all knew coming into this window, we needed to bring in two centre-backs in here first and foremost. And now we're sitting here going, oh, we need to sell Kane to be able to do other pieces of business. Absolute bollocks. Even if you sell Harry Kane, you still got to get rid of another 9 to 10 players anyway. So you ain't bringing anyone else in unless they're under, I think it's 19 or 21 years of age, where they don't have to be registered. And are they going to be good enough for what we need?
Tabata Duda, if Murata is looking, though, for a different job after maybe this Lukaku situation, I would say absolutely. Let's bring him on over to Tottenham Hotspur as a new director of football. We've done well with the Italians. Tinman007 says, big up, guys. I can come to terms with Kane going, but a lot of fans like myself are annoyed with the timing of it. If he goes, we 100% need a replacement now. Tim Man, though, is it too late for this replacement? Because we've been waiting this long. Also, too, Ange Postecoglou has been probably quite confused as to which striker he's actually going to be working with for the majority this summer. Because if it is Harry Kane staying, that means Richarlison goes to more of a rotation type option where he is going to be playing fewer games than maybe he might want. If Harry Kane goes, then Richarlison is going to be the guy most likely to be playing most of the games up top. And if you were a manager, you would like to know at least a few weeks before the season gets kicked off which striker you are probably going to be playing the majority of the games for. But right now, he can't even make that decision. He doesn't know whether it's going to be Harry Kane playing 38 games this Premier League season or whether it's going to be Richarlison doing it. And that would be a headache because it's not like they're very similar players either, I would say, Tin Man. They're both very different players.
Just quickly,
yes.
Update, breaking news. Richarlison potentially rumoured to be injured and requiring surgery. So now we've no strikers.
Now we're really with no strikers. I think this would make this, I don't know. I think there's more to see from there. I haven't seen anything from the club. Where have you seen that from, Dave?
I've seen a few people reported it, talking about it on Twitter, and some of the accounts are starting to sort of come out with it slowly. Look, it's only rumoured. Let's wait and see. But if that is the case, because correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Ange Postecoglou not say after the Barcelona game that Richie was carrying a knock while playing?
He did say he was carrying a knock, but what I would say is that has been Richie's biggest problem since coming here. I don't even know if it's been him. Not as much. People say, oh, he didn't take his chances here. He didn't take his chances there. I think it's just him just being injured the majority of the time. He's never been able to get into a real flow of games because he's always finding himself injured anytime he gets an opportunity to get that flow of games, to get that consistent run. So Richarlison if anything, I think he's really hurt himself with these injuries. I think they've actually given him less of a chance of ever really making the impact that he wants at this club. In fact, he hasn't really always been available just because he's finding himself injured. And I find it weird too, because it's not like he's had all that much action too. He's just sort of finding himself injured just via training. I don't really get it. I don't know what's really going on there, but more to see from that for sure. But Tin Man, absolutely need absolutely need replacements. I am actually really liking the look of a Gift Orban, but the way I sort of saw it was maybe Kane could have stayed for this season, and even if he was going to go on a free, we could have kept a Gift Orban maybe out on loan. We could have brought him in maybe still as sort of a backup rotation option, and then we could use him then the following summer. So I do like the looks of a Gift Orban. I really like Kolo Muani. That would be someone I would actually want Spurs to go after, but I just sort of feel like it's still too late to now bring in a top striker of some kind to fill in for Harry Kane. I think I'd rather have that guy sort of be waiting maybe for his chance the next season or the next summer to come in. So I don't know. It just feels far too late to look for Harry Kane replacements and for Harry Kane sort of options, at least. It feels just far too late.
Yeah.
I'd rather we be looking at the beginning of the summer than we be looking now, like you say there, Tin Man.
Well, this is what the club should have set, coming back off preseason as the minimum deadline to get the Harry Kane deal done by Bayern Munich side, so that we could have used the Shakhtar and the Barcelona game to buy a striker and bet him in and get him comfy. Now what we're going to have to do is, if we do buy one, we're going to have to get him sort of, it's very rare that strikers come into the Premier League and hit the ground running. Them. Some of them take time to adjust. And, so for me, it's going to take this new guy a bit of time to adjust to the Premier League. So it does concern me a little, Jacko. But, also, I'm not being funny, right? I get it about Gift Orban. We've got so many players and strikers that have potential, Jack. It's not that we need. We need an out-and-out goal scorer. And I'll tell you why now in a second. But people need to remember, we've got young Jamie Donnelly. We've got Divine or Parrott. We've got Scarlett. We've got Sumsup Bell. We've got Will Lancashire. We've brought in Valise. We've got more than enough strikers with potential that know how to bag goals. But it's about them fulfilling that. And if you're going to sell Harry Kane and bring in Gift Orban, forget about next season. Forget about it. We're going to be a mid-table team, if not a lower-table team. It's an absolute disgrace if that's the caliber of striker Tottenham are looking to replace one of the best in the world with. Absolutely disgraceful. They've had all summer long to sort of do the backbones to a Dusan Vlahovic or someone like that. Not a Gift Orban. I'm sorry. I get it about Gift Orban. I get the potential and everything else. But he is nowhere near the finished article and not what we need. People will sit there, and I've heard it all summer long, saying, Ange doesn't need a striker that scores 30 goals a season. Okay, if you don't want to talk about what Furuhashi done at Celtic. Furuhashi came in, bagged the goals for Ange Postecoglou, and he sold Gakamakis, who didn't score them at the same rate, and fucked them off to MLS. The reason why is because Ange Postecoglou needs a striker with the composure to finish off the moves. Furuhashi was the best striker in Scotland by a country mile, scoring 30 goals a season for him nearly. And so Ange Postecoglou does need that striker that's going to be up there to finish off the moves on a regular basis. He's going to need it.
Yeah.
So a Gift Orban is not the answer.
And the way I see it too is that top strikers aren't going to be sold usually this late into a window. I think Tin Man 007. So the Kolo Muani suggestion that I had there could be too late. You already have PSG and other clubs going in after him. And also maybe Frankfurt feel like maybe now for them it's too late to get rid of a guy like that this sort of summer. I think they've even given him a new contract, if I'm not mistaken, too. So it's probably too late to even bring in that quality replacement that Dave's even talking about there. But
what club's going to let theirs go, though, Jack?
That's what I'm saying. Too late.
Season?
It's too late.
Way too late. Way too late. Because believe it or not, other clubs' owners will step up and say, season's starting.
They'll feel like we do.
It.
They'll feel like how we do. They'll think that why would we get rid of our best striker, even if they're, let's say, a smaller club and maybe don't have as much of the sway or the financial sway as maybe we might. They still would probably think to themselves, well, we'll make this pretty hard on you because we're not just going to give up our best striker at this stage of the season. Even I think if we go to in the case of Ghent, even though I agree with you, Dave, Gift Orban is probably nowhere near as sort of proven yet. They still would think that us going to them sort of very late into the window might even force us to spend 10, 15 million extra that we absolutely don't need to be spending because we've left it this late. Big up to you, though, Tin Man 007.
That's the thing, Jack. We've no option but to go for a Gift Orban. No option. Because no other club
he's
is
the only
sell
option.
as a top striker.
He's the only option at this late. Yeah, at this
We
stage.
put ourselves in such a pickle. It's unbelievable. I cannot believe we're here. And I actually can't believe we have to talk about this 2 days out from the season. We had stuff planned today, season predictions, other things. Ange Postecoglou's best.
Can't even
Can't
do
even
it.
do anything because of this crap.
Chris as well, throwing in a super chat. Big up to you, Chris, my friend. He says, only one song for Dier is Get Out of Our Club. Eric Dier, Get Out of Our Club. I just don't know, Chris, that Eric Dier is going to be leaving our club anytime soon. I really don't. I see it that he's probably going to stick out at least the remainder of this season. I really hope they're not going to give him a new contract at the end of the season. Hopefully he just continues to unimpress Ange, because what I can tell is that he is definitely not impressing Ange. He feels very reluctant to give him minutes right now. And then he didn't do very much with the minutes that was given to him in that Barcelona game. In fact, he's probably the worst player on the pitch when you really look at it. So hopefully Eric Dier is headed out the door this summer, but I don't see it happening. I actually more likely see it happening the following summer, which for me is probably 3, 4, 5 seasons too late. He should have gone at least 3, 4, 5 seasons ago. It's been a guy that, like you said earlier, has probably had 9, 10 lives at this club. And I just, yet again, don't understand how he's been given another one. And it's true also, right? Harry Kane being sold before Eric Dier, Højbjerg being sold before Eric Dier. Just priorities are all backwards right now. They really are,
Yeah.
Chris.
Look at the message it sends out. It's a joke. It's a joke. Come to
And then
Tottenham, piss about. You can stay here for 10 years.
Michael as well saying, big up to you, Michael. He says, I wonder what Richarlison thinks of all this. Well, Michael, I hope Richarlison is doing his very best to try to stay in shape. And I hope this surgery isn't nothing too serious, but it is serious because we're just approaching this game against Brentford and our star striker could be sold. And then our backup sort of star striker is injured for the first game of the season. What are Spurs going to do? Do we have to play Sonny up top? Again, is Ange Postecoglou maybe a few days before his first game of the season in the Premier League? Is he going to be found out with 2 of his strikers are not going to be available? Just feels like it's a situation where another manager is going to have his hands tied behind his back. Another manager is going to have another headache. I feel like Richie, I hope he's not injured, and I hope in any way this isn't serious, because as much as I love the guy and I've really backed the guy and I have a Richie kit, I've grown really frustrated with these injuries. I think that's actually what's hurt him the most. It's actually not as much him taking his chances. I think it's just him not being available to take the chances that he could have had. Big up to you, though, Michael. And then DG in here again says, if the Richie news are true, he only had 1 goal anyway. I think he's had probably more chances to grab more than that. He's been very unlucky, but I just sort of thought the reason he finished with that 1 goal at the end of the day was just because his games were so kind of like spaced in and out, and he never had that consistent run of games. I don't even know if that consistent run of games was really all Conte's fault. Like I said again, I think it was more his fault with how often he was injured. There were a lot of games where Kane easily could have been given a rest, but he never could have been given a rest because Richarlison was injured for the majority of the season. Some of the FA Cup games, some of the other cup games where Kane could have been taken off in the 60th minute, or vice versa, where maybe Richarlison starts, then Kane comes onto the pitch, never was an option for us because Richarlison was usually hurt. So I think he's actually wasted most of his chances by just being injured. And I know that's not anybody's fault being injured, but it's just how it is. It's, he's just not been there to take his chances. Big up to you, DG.
Thing is, look, I get it, DG. He's got 1 goal. We can say, he's not going to be much of a miss. If you sell Harry Kane, this is what the club are pinning their hopes on. That's why they outlaid 60 million last summer. That's why, for this guy, to be the guy to replace Harry Kane. So, the fact that we might have neither, it just speaks of negligence, misconduct. And the thing is, the biggest implication of it all is Ange's tenure. It ain't going to get him off to a good start. And, I'll get on to that in a while, but, we can all sit here and preach patience. Reality is, once a certain noise being started to build by media and everything else, everyone starts following suit and they'll preach the same.
Just wanted to take a comment here from Kamikaze, and he says the lads have today off, being the Spurs boys, and he says, seems weird that the Richarlison news would come out now at the same time as the Kane bid is accepted. It does sound a bit fishy. If you were to put on a bit of a tinfoil hat, could you say that is a bit fishy that this Richarlison news has come about the same time as the Harry Kane news? Maybe. I say just watch this space, but it feels like such a doomsday scenario with Harry Kane being potentially sold, and then Richarlison's surgery news coming out the same day. That does seem like possibly the worst sort of situation we could find ourselves in. If you were to then that if you wanted to basically scare Spurs fans, that is probably what you would drum up, and that is probably what you would try to make up. But I don't know if it's really untrue. It could be true, knowing also Richarlison's injury record so far. But Kamikaze, it could be fishy. It certainly could be. But big up to you, my man. Leighton Evelyn with a super chat. Big up to you, Leighton. He says, Jack, Dave, it's like my 10-year-old dog has died. Kane is gone. Levy won't spend $85 million on a signature signing. We are in the mud. I have had enough. I don't know if Levy's willing or prepared to spend that much money on a replacement like a Kolo Muani or like a Dusan Vlahovic or other players like an Osimhen, Leighton Evelyn. But the other thing, too, is I just don't know if even he has enough time to bring in a top quality striker, because I don't think they would go at this stage of the summer, at this stage of the window. Usually you don't see the big names moving around this late in the window at this moment. They do start to move around this time, if not earlier. It's really hard to see big players sort of move when you're already a few weeks into the season. It's just not usually the case unless they've been sitting in like the under 23s, just sort of waiting for their move to happen or waiting for their move to go ahead. But yeah, I just don't know if Spurs, even if they wanted to spend 85 million on a striker, I don't know if there are any real 85 million pound evaluation strikers available at this stage of the window. I think it's far too late.
Look, there's a reason why all the top clubs around Europe have expressed their interest in Harry Kane. Some of them, they know it's going to keep them winning titles. Others know it's going to propel them to a title. That's the difference. We let him go, we are in trouble. And especially if Richie has to do the surgery. But look, I'm distraught. I'm disgusted with Daniel Levy. I'm upset, but most of all, I'm worried for Tottenham Hotspur. The fact that we're sitting here selling our best ever player, our goal scorer, record goal scorer, best ever player. I mean, it's sad. And it's not why we built the stadium and all the infrastructure around it for this day to come. This day was not supposed to come once we built that stadium and built that training complex and all the other revenue streams. So it's sad that we're here. And look, I'm just worried for Tottenham Hotspur because, look, this did happen before, sort of when Daniel Levy sold Dimitar Berbatov to Man United. Now, I get that season we went on and we had an okay season in the end, but we had to sack a manager to do that. 8 games in, we were sitting down the bottom of the league, had to sack a manager, brought in Harry Redknapp, and he went on to take us on to do what he went to do. But, could the same happen with Ange Postecoglou now? If I'm Ange Postecoglou, I'm sitting there concerned and worried tonight. All of a sudden, my job has got a lot tougher, especially up in the forward department, than what it needed to be. Plus, I still have to find a way of stopping us from shipping the same amount of goals that we were shipping last season. And over the course of pre-season, we're still shipping them goals. And it's not taking us much for that to happen either. So if I'm Ange Postecoglou sitting there this evening, I am bloody concerned.
And Wolf Maller just bringing up a comment here. He says, absolutely, I keep saying it, there are no replacements for Harry Kane. There are only alternatives. I would say even if we had a whole summer to try to replace Harry Kane, I think people like Dave feel like there are only alternatives. Even if we had all the time in the world, there isn't really a true replacement, a true sort of just fill in for Harry Kane. You are going to look at alternatives. And then this late into the window, you're really only going to be looking at alternatives and just sort of guys that can maybe do something a bit different and just sort of fill in as best they can. But they're not going to be the direct replacements, especially this late into the window. Great comment there, Wolf.
Big up Leighton as well, my man. I'm gutted just like you, brother. Absolutely gutted. This guy's carried the club on his shoulders for years. And the fact that he's going now, it does concern us. But Leighton, 3 days time the season kicks off. We'll see what happens, brother. Big yourself up. Got it done.
Greatest striker of my lifetime, Leighton. Probably the greatest striker I'll ever see play for Spurs. And sold in this sort of manner. Sold in this sort of manner is very unexpected. Didn't even have much time to think about it happening. All of a sudden just, has been brought on us last minute. It's not easy. And that's what's also tough right now. It's just sort of us as Spurs fans are still sort of processing right now, this all of a sudden just changing, the news just switching like that with a snap of a finger. It just is tough for us to even process, I imagine. Big up to Tin Man 007 as well. Thrown in another one. He says, if Sonny, Kulu, and Richie have a season like last season, we are bang in trouble without Kane, especially with this current defense. Really feel for Ange right now. I don't want to sound too negative, but I really do feel like Ange has probably been set up for failure or at least set up for struggles as much as as much as Conte was, as much as Jose was, and as much as previous managers have been. He's never had any clarity on this Kane situation the whole summer. He's had to pick between Richarlison and Kane, for his sort of future striker, and both of them I think are very different from each other too. I'm just worried about Ange Postecoglou. He has basically no clarity on the future. He doesn't even know whether Højbjerg is going to be staying or not, too. That's also kind of another issue that obviously isn't as big as the Harry Kane one, but still a very important one when it comes to our midfield. Just feel bad for him. I just don't know really if he's going to be able to start off in as strong of a way as he would like to and start off with as much confidence around the team as they would like to, even for the rest of the team, for the rest of the teammates around. All this news, all this sort of attention from the media, it doesn't bode well with what they're trying to build there and what sort of kind of a mentality they're trying to have with each other. They want to have a squad full of players that they know are all committed to the team, they're all behind each other, all behind Ange, and they just don't have that right now. They just don't know what to think. And I feel bad for him. And I think in a lot of ways, he is being set up for at least a tough first month. And it's just sad to see a guy, being kind of having his hands tied behind his back. And yeah, maybe a few months down the road, he'll probably start kind of turning some results around, or maybe he will prove us wrong and he'll do absolutely, maybe he'll come out the gates really fast. But still, I think all of us would say he has been in some way set up for at least a tougher sort of first few games and tougher first months than he needed to. We wanted this rebuild to go as smoothly and as best as possible. This rebuild in no way has been set up for success, and in no way has been set up for him to have a successful rebuild. I think eventually we could have one, but in no way have we gotten it on the right track so far.
Do you know what, Jack, Tim, man, and everyone else out there? Oh, Dier had said it to me as soon as I got home with my mother there Tuesday night. The old lad said to me, Kane could be gone. And he was like, we're banging trouble, Dave. And I was like, look, I know, but look, what we need to realize is as well, the start, right? We've got what, four out of the first 6 games away, plus now Fulham thrown in there away from home in the Carabao Cup as well. Who scores all of our away goals? Harry Kane. He scores the majority of them. He steps up more than anybody away from home. Usually, most of the time, it's only him. So, we're going to have to, for Ange Postecoglou to get off to a good start, if Kane does decide to leave, someone's going to have to step up and away from home and start banging in some of them goals, because it's usually Harry Kane that steps up. He's got the most away goals ever in the Premier League out of any other player to ever grace it. So, I think we're in big trouble, and especially Tim, man, because I've always argued. I even said it last season when people were saying, Dave, we need to get rid of Conte and bring in a manager that plays on the front foot football. I've always said, okay, fine, but your problems are still going to be there. It's not going to change unless you change personnel. And we're sitting here with a lot of the same personnel sitting there. And look, we know with Romero there's going to be injury suspensions. Van de Ven, we don't know whether he's going to hit the ground running or not. It's going to take him time to adapt, and there's going to be mistakes there. So could be a case where the same problems come back to haunt us before Ange even finds a way in the other area going forward. And this is what I've always argued. Selling Kane is, and even if you decide to do the back line, which we haven't done properly, all you're doing is solving one problem but creating another. It never made sense to me. It should have been improve that back line, keep Harry Kane here, and try and get the guy to sign a new contract. But the reality is that back line is shipping goals left, right, and centre. 4 against Barcelona, 1 against Shakhtar, 1 against the Lion City Sailors, which is embarrassing, and 3 against West Ham. But the reality is 2 of the better teams, West Ham and Barcelona, they did not have to do much to score goals, which has been a problem at Tottenham for quite some time. And if that's not resolved, and there's been no evidence that it has been resolved, we are banging trouble, because not only are you still conceding the same amount of goals, but you're also taking 30 of the goals you have scored out.
Yeah. Big up to Jacob Anderson. He says, guys, unfortunately, this day was going to come eventually, but I would prefer Spurs to at least get money for him instead of him leaving next season for free. I would be gutted if he went to a Chelsea. There is that sort of fear factor, Dave, that Jacob has brought up here. Big up to you, Jacob. Really do appreciate your support as a member, my man. And it feels like there is that risk factor of him going. I think I'd take the risk of him going on a free. I've already explained myself that I think we need to break down this rebuild into 2 parts, fix the Harry Kane problem the next summer. But a lot of people have that major fear of him going to a big rival like a Chelsea, like a Man United, and they just don't want to see him win those trophies for somebody else. Does that fear come into you? Is that fear maybe just not in your priority, or not as high on your priority list as it is others? Like, where do you find that fear?
Look, Jack, I've been of the opinion Tottenham Hotspur always make money. They've got more diverse revenue streams than any other club in the Premier League. We've got a billionaire owner. We make more on match day in terms of tickets and general sales in food, beer, and merchandise than most clubs in the Premier League. Tottenham don't need money. It's why would we want to line the club's pockets with 100 million when everybody, including Jacob, I'm not having a go at Jacob here, by the way, but including Jacob and myself, we all lambaste the club for not being so quick to spend it. So why are we so quick to line the club's pockets with that money? Also, I've stated all along, I think you improve that back line, you keep Harry Kane for a season, you get yourself back into Champions League football, which then means you're not taking that 100 million loss that everyone sort of argues about. But it is a risk. There's no guarantee that that will be the case. But for me, I've always said, rather than cower down to these big clubs and feel like they're little whipping boys, I'd rather stand up and take the gamble for once and announce that we're here. At some stage, we have to do it. Why not do it now with our best ever player to grace in a Tottenham jersey? Now than ever before should be the time. We should take that gamble. We should stand up for it, and we should take that risk, because I do think you improve that back line, you get Harry Kane, he fires you back to Champions League. I think without it, I think we put ourselves into a world of problems, and the unknowns could end up spiraling, and it's going to take us years to get back there. As for the part of leaving to a Man United or Chelsea, they can't approach him until the summer, or else it's illegal. There's a rule in place. The only clubs that can approach him in January on a pre-contract are Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Bayern Munich, Dortmund, any other club around Europe, bar any team in Scotland, Wales, or England.
There you are, Jacob. And I wanted to bring that up on screen just because I feel like a lot of people feel the same way as you, Jacob. And obviously Dave and I feel a bit differently about the Harry Kane situation. So I just thought, it's good to get difference of opinion up there on screen. Big up to you, my man. Appreciate your support. And just two other comments before we get to the bottom due to Super Chat. G. Moore says, if there are any 85 million strikers out there, you can bet that they are now a lot more expensive for us, as the other clubs now know that we are even more desperate than before. And then also Tequila 316 sort of brought up earlier, why would any of the top quality strikers want to even come to Spurs right now? We have no Europe at all. It's a hard sell. They would have to be basically sold by what Postecoglou is doing here, right? It would be more what Ange is able to sell them with sort of the style of play, as well as the rebuild, and also maybe the role that he would be giving them if he was able to tell that striker, listen, you're going to be my number one guy. You are going to be the new face of Tottenham Hotspur up front. That could be a very attractive option for somebody. But it is true that Spurs might not be as attractive as they once were in the past. In the past, we used to have, that sort of sellable factor of having a real top elite manager. I really like Postecoglou, and I think he's the right one for us, but he doesn't have as much of that draw as you could say a Jose or maybe a Conte did in the past. But then also just not having European football and the extra games that you can hand to players and the extra sort of revenue and all the extra bonuses and everything that come with that, you also don't have. So you're about kind of getting into Europe again. So it is technically a less attractive option than it used to be. This sort of role here. You are right, Tequila 316, and big up to you, G Moore. Bottom Duda with a super chat says, thoughts on Nicholas Füllkrug? He could be a good option if Kane was sold. Do you think he fits in this system? Big up on another great show. Top man, Bottom Duda. Nicholas Füllkrug, massive striker, kind of just your typical big man. I think he's pretty old though. He might even be older than Harry Kane or around the same age as Harry Kane. For like a here and now sort of option, I see what you're going for, to Bottom Duda, because what Dave sort of brought up earlier, right, is that we have so many talented kids for the future. Maybe what you would look more towards is just a proven option for the here and now. And Füllkrug, could he do a job for a season or two? Potentially, but he's only just started kind of blowing up. He's kind of towards the latter end of his career now. Maybe he's having a bit of a late bloom. There are plenty of strikers that do have a late bloom kind of in their career. I just sort of see it as we could go after better. But does he fit the system? Big, tall number 9, really good finishing, good in the air, really good box presence, sort of is just a really good poacher is what I would say, Dave. And he has a really good finish on him. Nicholas Füllkrug, big, tall, and strong, kind of Mitrovic type body build, you could say too. Does that fit an Ange system? I don't feel like he's the right person in particular. I think we would need to shoot a little bit higher in terms of quality. But what type of striker does suit the system? Is it a big, tall number 9? Is it more of like a kind of a is it like a Gift Orban that would be a bit tinier, a bit, sort of quicker and kind of on the last shoulder of a player? What do we kind of need? What sort of striker suits it best, do you think?
Look, first of all, just quickly, Jacko, Richarlison has come out and branded the rumours as he needs surgery fake himself through his own personal account. So
get in there. Come on, Rich.
Harry Kane, follow suit and tell us you're staying through your personal account. Tweeted you twice today, my man, twice, and you still haven't replied. Get back to me. But look, Jacko, for me, there's no one else that can do what Harry Kane can do. Simple. All I want is a striker that can control the ball with both feet, finish the ball with both feet, pass the ball with both feet, be able to hold up the ball, be strong in the air, basically just have an all-round game. As a striker, you have to have that. If you're a striker that just runs in behind, eventually you're going to be found out. If you're a striker that requires just crosses into the box and that's your bread and butter, eventually you are going to be found out. So for me, it's just got to be a striker that's as good as Harry Kane, because my ambition is not to finish 8 or 7 next season. My ambition is to march back up that league table where I think this club belongs. My ambition is to march towards an FA Cup or a domestic cup, especially since we have no European football this season. So that's what I want from the club. I don't want to sit there and finish around 7 or 8. One player I would suggest, I had 2. I really liked Isaac before he went to Newcastle, so that's dead in the water. Why not go and get Evan Ferguson? Scores goals in the Premier League, similar body shape and style to Harry Kane, and he can play, and he's good in the air. So for me, go and outlay that money on Evan Ferguson.
If you were to go after an Evan Ferguson, do you sort of think then there's probably going to be a few? I brought this up in the Alejo Valise video, but we do have a lot of talented young players on our books.
Ferguson's more than talented. He's proven now at this
point. What I mean, I know he is more talented. I'm saying, do you end up maybe pushing someone out the door then by signing a Ferguson? Do you get rid of a Scarlett? Do you end up having to say no to maybe Alejo Valise or somebody like that? Like, do you push one of our talented forwards maybe out the door or more on a loan, like Jude Soonsup-Bell, Jamie Donnelly? When you bring in a Ferguson, you then think about it. We then have like 4 or 5 really talented forwards to pick from, which is a really good problem to have. It's actually a great problem to have. But do you think maybe if Ferguson came in, might not be enough room then for somebody might end up leaving? Do you think one of the talented forwards?
Yeah, probably they're going to have to, Jack. But look, I don't think Troy Parrott's going to make it at Tottenham. I think his injury problems have sort of hampered him making any sort of impact on Tottenham's first team. Dane Scarlett's loan spells haven't gone according to the way many people have expected them to go. So there's question marks about that. But look, this is the great thing about bringing in all these young players. Only the best will come through. So, it's the strongest will survive. So that's the good gamble about it. But, Troy Parrott's 21 now, bordering 22. A decision's going to have to be made soon enough on that. Dane Scarlett soon after. So, it's up to these kids to be the strongest one to come through. And at the end of the day, that's what elite level sport is all about, Jack. You're going to have many people that are going to be brought in, no matter where you've been, to sort of come into your position. And it's about, can you push on and be even better?
Big up to Vince Vega as well. He's saying, I'm feeling a bit sad. It's the end of the Harry Kane era. I'm feeling a bit hollow. I think a lot of us just feel like it's a gut punch. It came out of nowhere. And I'm even kind of still processing it, really. I actually thought it was the other way around for quite a while. I was quite confident that he was actually staying here, at least this season. Good to see you, George GP, fellow member in the house as well. Dave, before I kind of bring up Sean D's comment here, and which I think is a good sort of kind of a talking point, but I know we kind of had some other talking points, at least, that maybe you had prepared. Was there something that maybe you still wanted to touch on before we kind of get to some other comments and then maybe start to wrap up the show?
I've sort of been able to touch on a lot of them throughout the discussion. So thank you, everybody out there, for that. That's been absolutely awesome. But, Jack, there was one thing I wanted to touch on, is the captaincy.
Yeah, take us there.
It's been clear that when Kane has been playing, if he was staying, he was going to be the captain. Now we're going into a season with a brand new captain who hasn't been, and this is what I get on about piss poor planning from the club, because that captain should have been more or less Ange Postecoglou should have been able to walk in here and said, this is my captain. and then everyone else follows suit. Give that captain a chance to be able to take up the responsibilities, and be able to sort of help, get Ange messages across. But, that now we have to change captain as well. So not only have we had a change in manager, no director of football, Scott Munn hasn't even started yet, no change in captain yet. We've had a change in goalkeeper, one change at centre back, and now we're going to have a change in the forward line as well. There's so many unvariables going into this season, and the piss poor planning is going to hamper this club in the first part of the season. And will Ange Postecoglou get that long? And I feel sorry for Ange, Jack. He's been pissed about. He walked in here, he had a meeting with Tottenham. Okay, what needs to get done in the transfer market? He obviously sat there and said centre backs. They didn't bring in centre backs. Then the narrative is, oh, well, if Ange wants to bring them on pre-season tour to have a look at them, I mean, give me a break. He's got no option but to bring them on pre-season tour because we haven't signed anybody for him to take a look at. Then he comes back from pre-season tour. They're still around. We haven't really done anything to address our issues. And now we're selling our best striker. I feel so sorry for Ange Postecoglou. And we've already done so much to piss this guy off. And it's testament so far to how this guy has handled themselves throughout all of this. But every manager has a tipping point. Conte had his tipping point. Jose Mourinho took it for so long before he had his tipping point. And Ange Postecoglou has had to put up with a hell of a lot already. At least under Conte, he said, these aren't coming, no problem. They've done that. Same with Jose Mourinho. But Ange Postecoglou hasn't had that same sort of say. And for me, I worry about heading into this season, Jack. I really do, because the media will not give Postecoglou the same grace that they did with Conte or Jose Mourinho. At least with them, they highlighted Tottenham's problems first before they started going after the manager. With Postecoglou, it's already going to be a media witch hunt just so that they can sit there and go, I told you he was never going to make it at this level, this, that, and the other. And for me, I worry about the whole situation, Jacko. And the captaincy is how much have we spoke about leadership, Jack? Being a massive part of the reason why this club fails, because there's no leadership in the dressing room. The manager isn't allowed to lead. He doesn't get the final decision. Players know they can go to Levy, so that makes him ineffective. And it's sort of like all this shit needs to stop. Leadership is so important in terms of in the squad, and not having that captain or a settled captain is absolutely disgraceful.
It feels really crazy to let go basically of two of your top leaders, it feels like, at the club. I've actually questioned whether Harry Kane is really the ideal captain actually for Spurs. I'm not sure if he really is, but he still is one of our best options. Even if he isn't the perfect option, he is still one of our best options right now as a captain. And what also worries me is also Højbjerg potentially leaving the club as well. He's the other best option you would think right now for this captaincy role. Yes, I understand that Sonny would then be kind of left as sort of the one to take it on, but even then, Sonny sort of seeing his partner in crime, Harry Kane, go, somebody that he himself has sort of relied on to sort of carry the team with him, right? It's always been the duo kind of carrying the team, Sonny and Kane. And once Sonny loses his kind of partner in crime and Harry Kane, is he able to take on that burden of just sort of putting the whole team on his back, not only just in terms of the goals, the assists, the output, but also the leadership, right? He probably had Kane as sort of kind of a confidant, as sort of kind of a partner in being those leaders by example, right? We both said in the past that Sonny and Kane are kind of more leaders by example, we feel like, than they are sort of kind of leaders in the way that they sort of scream and kind of yell at guys and try to keep them accountable that way. But they are leaders in how much professionals they are, how good they are in kind of the big moments and kind of the clutch situations. Those sort of things are really important about being a leader. But I am a bit worried that if Son ends up losing some of his sort of, I would say, his fellow leaders, his fellow confidants in the team, that requires him to be an even better captain. That requires him to even be an even more kind of out there sort of leader. And I just feel like that hinders even Sonny a little bit. You would think he would want to have a Kane or a Højbjerg around to be able to sort of lean on if need be. And if they do go, he wouldn't have them. And if it's Sonny left, I would say Sonny, Bentancur, Basuma as the potential sort of options for the captaincy, but you're leaving yourself kind of in a worrisome situation there, because you're giving it to a guy, maybe except for Sonny, who has never had the captaincy before, and then also you're giving it likely to somebody who's very, very young and maybe needs time to sort of learn how to be a captain and how to be a leader for this team. What you want most, though, is just somebody who's not only good at keeping the whole team accountable and keeping them motivated and keeping them as a teammates and keeping them strong with each other, but you also need somebody that's a good earpiece for Postecoglou, a guy that can relay his message, can relay his instructions, can also understand the tactics well enough. I think sometimes a captain needs to be good tactically, at least in the head, to be able to explain to others what needs to be done in the middle of a game, how they can switch something up, those sort of things. There's so many elements that go into being a good captain. I don't think Harry Kane in any way was a perfect candidate, but he probably was one of the best candidates. He probably was one of the best candidates, and that's
many people would have suggested Højbjerg and Harry Kane. You know, we're selling two of what the only leadership we really had in that dressing room. It's and it's worrying times, Jack. Without leadership, it's all gonna completely sink. It sinks without leadership. We seen that last season. As soon as Hugo sort of threw in the towel, everything sunk on the football pitch. And do you know what's most sad about it, Jack? It's a summer where we needed to really change our ways and act like we've never done before. And all we've done is create a bigger mess than we've ever done before. And it's sad. We still have a lot of work to do. We're 2 days out from the season. Still a lot of players to get rid of. Seems like our best players are going. And it's just sad. I never thought, look, if Harry Kane goes, he goes. We still got no decision sitting here this evening. If he goes, he goes. We'll get on with it. We'll get over it. But it's not why we built this stadium. It's not why we built Spurs Play to charge people. It's not why they done the walk in, put all the extra restaurants and everything else in, and it goes completely against why they built the stadium. But Jack, also the sacrifices fans and other people had to make 3 windows without signings for this to happen, to put ourselves in this position to keep the best players. And now that sacrifice and that pain that Spurs fans had to go through now seems why. Why did we do it? Seems like every time, we get told one thing and we just get lied to and the club go and do a complete another. And if there's any young kids out there who's maybe thinking about supporting Spurs or just on your journey, get out now while you can. Don't be like me. Don't be locked in. It's painful. It's hard. And, you just end up losing your best players. And it's not what this football club or great football club should be about. There was a time before where we could bring in players and we could keep our best players. We went on to win things. And now we do everything in our power to be able to win anything. And I'm just quite frankly fed up with it. I'm bored of it. I'm sick of it. I just want this bloody football club to progress. But here we are out 2 days from a season with a bigger conundrum than we went into the window with.
Everybody, leave your comments down below. Hit that like button, please. I think we've just about covered as much as we wanted to. Nothing has really happened in the time that we've been streaming. I think we were also sort of waiting for some extra news maybe to come way. I guess the Richarlison news aren't really true about him being injured. You can relax, I guess, in that sense. But also, I guess it's been confirmed that the press conference for the Brentford game will be at 1 o'clock tomorrow, UK time. Will there be a decision made by then? Maybe that's my last question, Dave. Will there be a decision made by 1 o'clock tomorrow before that press conference?
There has to be, Jack. Look, as soon as Spurs accepted the bid, we've got to know one way or another. I would have said, we need to know tonight. This cannot rumble on going into the Brentford game. If it doesn't, Harry Kane suits up. I hope he stays true to his words and refuses to move. Look, Jack, I've got Friday and Saturday to get through. Let's see if I can get through 48 hours with keeping Harry Kane, because it's my belief
Hold on tight.
Tottenham are better with Harry Kane than without him. And look, Jack, I'm a firm believer. If you manifest something enough, it comes true. So what I'm going to do for the next 48 hours is ignore that creepy Plattenberg, Tittenberg, whatever you want to call him, Pissenberg, I don't care. Ignore FC Bayern, ignore build daylight wrecking relationships as seen with Nagelsmann. I hope I hope that Oktoberfest is a complete washout this year. I hope that there's no glasses for it, there's no beer for it. I hope that they're not allowed. I hope that there's a shortage of Frankfurters. I'm absolutely fed up with them. 48 hours. I'm going to manifest that this guy stays. I'm going to switch off all the news around me, all the noise around me, like I've all done all summer long. So far, my manifesting has worked, and hopefully it stays working. That's it for me, guys. Hopefully you all do the same. Sit there, manifest life this season with Harry Kane, and hopefully it'll happen.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you also to plenty of people who have helped out the channel in any way they can. I've tried to bring up as many comments as I could, but there were so many people who threw in their member super chats. Big up to KPV, Daniel Larson, Jim, Lazy 8, Chris, and then also thank you to everybody else who did donate to the channel. Zod, Paul,
Legends.
DG, Late Evelyn, Bottom Dude, Tin Man, Chris, Michael. Plenty of you really do appreciate it. It does actually help out the channel a lot. Dave and I are trying our best to sort of kind of transition over to kind of a new sort of kind of, fancier kind of tech and kind of streaming platforms and everything. We're kind of going through our growing pains with it, but we do appreciate your guys' patience and all of it. But it's all because of kind of the support you've given us in the past that we're trying to make this sort of transition to better looking platform to make things look at least better on screen for you guys. But appreciate you guys helping us out. Thank you for tuning in for this one. The Harry Kane situation has not been resolved. Hopefully it could be resolved by tomorrow, 1 o'clock before Postecoglou, because you got to feel for that guy. He in no way has been given any clarity. Yes, Dave.
Just quickly, 2 things, Jacko. The owl lad says that Kane's missus has already bought the lederhosen. Wouldn't surprise me, hopefully there's none over there. Hopefully they're sold out and she wants to come home. And Rick C taunting me saying, Dave, don't cry. I mean, look, I want what's best for Tottenham. If you don't, change that Spurs crest to an Arsenal crest. Have a good night.
Everybody, have a good night. We'll be seeing you tomorrow for some more news and some further updates on the situation. Certainly not going away. We're not going away, but we will be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs. Please stay Big H. In the Big Ange, we trust.
Do the right thing. You won't find someone else like me out there.